BMW has just revealed a little teaser video of the upcoming BMW M3 Touring, and in this video I'm going to show you why this rear end design is the solution to BMW's controversial modern front ends. But it's not all good news. There is also a big problem with the new BMW M3. More on that later when we jump into Photoshop and talk about that design. Now, if you live in the US, there really aren't that many options if you want to get yourself a performance wagon, but the options that we do have here almost make up for it. For example, we have the Porsche Panamera Sport Turismo Turbo SE Hybrid. It's the longest Porsche name I've ever read in my entire life, but it has a 4-liter twin-turbo V8 with 690 horsepower, capable of launching itself to 60 miles per hour in just under 3 seconds in a station wagon. The Panamera is one of those car models that look a lot better in its wagon form compared to the sedan form, in my opinion. And of course, the Sport Turismo version and the wagon version of this Panamera is available for sale here in the US. And if you feel like internal combustion engines are a thing of the past, Porsche also offers the electric version of its performance wagon in the shape of the Taycan Sport Turismo. It's just fantastic. Then of course we have the Audi RS6, which I am really surprised that Audi actually decided to make that available here in the US. Its power comes from a 591 horsepower twin turbocharged 4-liter V8. It can do 0 to 60 in 3.1 seconds and reach a top speed of 190 miles per hour. It looks absolutely mental, and you can buy it right here in the US. What's not to love? And last but not least, we have the Mercedes E63 AMG Estate. It's a 603 horsepower twin-turbo V8, makes this German wagon with a shiny star on the hood as quick as some of the fastest supercars, and I'm not joking here. It will explode to 60 miles per hour in 3 seconds flat and cover the quarter mile in 11.1 seconds at 122 miles per hour. To put this in perspective, that's faster than the AMG GTR, which is a dedicated 2-door sports coupe. It's just incredible what wagons can do these days. Now, are these wagons cheap? No, of course not, but people are still buying them, and I don't understand why more people aren't. Don't worry, we're gonna talk about the M3 in just a second here, but I want to make this point. Why would you buy a Porsche Cayenne Turbo S with its high center of gravity and added weight? It will never allow you to use all of its power properly, and you know as well as me, you're not gonna take it off-road ever. It will spend 99% of its life cruising back and forth to Starbucks. The most challenging obstacles to overcome will be potholes. The better option for you, if you're looking to buy a Cayenne Turbo S, would be the Panamera Sport Turismo that we just talked about. A car that can actually go around corners quicker than 40 miles per hour and still get the kids to soccer practice on time. You can even fit 12 golf sets in the trunk. You know, essential stuff for anyone buying a Panamera. Now, let's jump into Photoshop here and let's have a look at this M3. First of all, I want to show you why I think the M3 Touring, or the wagon model, is the solution to all the BMW's problems that they've had with this front end that we see right here on the M4. I've made a video on this before, and what I talked about in that video, I think it was on this channel, it might have been on the Sketch Monkey, but what I said was the M4 or the M3 looks a lot better to me than the M4, even though they share the exact same front fascia right here, as you can see. But the problem with the M4 is that we have a lot going on in the front end, we have a lot going on in the rear end, as you can see right here, but in the middle it doesn't have anything connecting these two pieces. You don't have anything connecting the rear and the front. As I showed you in the first video I made about the M4, is like you have a sheet of paper like this, and then you have a lot of wrinkles and stuff going on right here in one end, and then you have the same going on in the other end, but in the middle there's nothing connecting these wrinkles or these lines in any way. It's just a smooth, massive surface right here in the middle. We have one line in the middle of this, but there's no sharp shoulder lines connecting the front and the rear. And what that makes is it emphasizes this big, massive front grille even more, because we have nothing in the middle to connect it or to take our eyes away from that feature in the front end that are the big kidneys. The M3, let's have a look at that and what's going on here. Why I like this a lot more than the M4 is simply because we have this beautiful shoulder line, a shoulder line that continues from the very rear end all the way to the front end, and it even has a little friend shoulder line right here going that kind of fades into nothing here that I'm not sure why they put there. But I think actually adding more lines to the side of the M3 and the M4 in this case, I would have wished that they added more lines. Usually I don't like to add lines just for the sake of adding more lines to the body of a car, but in this case, this type of M3, as you can see right there with those things in the front end, we need to kind of diverge your attention away from that piece by adding some lines in the rest of the body, and I think the M3 does that a lot better. You have this line and then another shoulder line and then a kind of faded shoulder line here in the M4, so it's a mess. It's like it's broken up in different pieces. But if we look at the M3, we have one continuous sharp line right here, and it makes it feel a lot more robust, and it also connects all the graphic features in the rear end, in the front, connected by these two lines here in the side view. A small detail, but it does make a difference in this design. Now, what could we do to draw even more attention away from the front end and the massive volumes that are the two kidneys in the front? What could we do here to make that more of a congruent design that doesn't really have the focus of attention to only one area of the car? Well, we could turn it into a touring model like this one right here. This looks absolutely fantastic. This is one of the best looking rear ends of any wagon I've ever seen, and I can't wait to see this out on the roads. And there comes the problem. The big problem with the new M3 is that unfortunately BMW decided to not sell the new M3 Touring in the US. The reason for that, it's a ridiculous reason, and it isn't really BMW's fault, but they went into crash testing in Europe and they passed the crash testing over there. Then they went into crash testing here for the standards in the US and it failed the crash tests over here. And the reason for that is the US, whatever regulatory people that are responsible for the crash tests here in the US, they said you need to do more to have it be a safe wagon. BMW said that if they were to sell the car here, what they need to do is go all the way back to the chassis and redesign that in order to build it back up just to be able to sell the wagon here in the US. And if you think about it from BMW's standpoint, that's gonna be very, very expensive, specifically when we're talking about a limited production car, which the M3 Touring is going to be. It just financially does not make sense for them to do that. They tried to do it even with the E46, this beautiful, gorgeous metal, almost floating liquid silver that I remember the E46 M3 Concepts had, which is my favorite color of any BMW of all time. This and the Le Mans Blue of the BMW E39 M5, those are my two favorite colors. They tried to make a wagon or a Touring out of the E46 M3. It turned out looking fantastic, and really there wasn't a lot of changes that they had to do to transform the coupe version into the Touring version of the M3, but that also failed. Same reasons there, because they had the parts, but in order to have the right crash safety, it didn't really pass all the regulatory paperwork that needed to be passed in order for it to be put into production. We in the US have the same problem now, unfortunately, with the new M3 wagon. It can be sold in Europe, but it can't be sold here. And to me, I feel like if it's good for Europe, I think it would be safe for us as well to be sold here. But I think the people in charge of these crash tests here in the US are just a bunch of wagon haters and don't want to see them on the road. It's very, very unfortunate. As I said, what this does now, and why I think this is the solution to BMW's problem with having this kidney, when I see this in the wagon form, if we look at this from a front view and at different angles, then all of a sudden you start to realize that the front end doesn't really bother me that much anymore, just because we have a bigger rear end and a more volume in the rear end, and we also have it in the M3 form, so we have the sharp shoulder line still intact here with the other second shoulder right there, and then we have this line in the side, so we have a lot going on in the side view, and this added volume in the back, it kind of makes it feel like it actually suits the front end now, because we have big volumes in the front end and now we also have a big volume in the rear, and together they create, in my opinion, the best version of any BMW up until today that has this type of front end. And I really think this is a gorgeous wagon, and it's very, very unfortunate that they can't sell it here in the US.